hear any audio. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we've got audio. So let's close that. Um, okay, this is Rumble's. Let's check, see if Rumble's playing. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we've got audio. So let's close that. And it's got audio. Okay, so my voice sounds kind of low. Maybe it's just my headphones. Let's check, see if Rumble's playing. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we've got audio. So let's close that. So, is there some way of turning up? I think my mic is all up to 100%. Let's check OBS. Oh, that's not all the way up. How about that? That's probably better. Probably better. Okay. So I don't like talking real loud. All right. So, I've been working my way towards being able to stream live for StreamTeam.com with the AI tools that are available. I'm just a single developer. I've been coding since I was a kid, since I was 10 years old. Um, and I'm 52 now. So it's many years of coding, and obviously AI is a big thing now. And probably for the past 8 years, I've been in that world. And obviously, I code now with AI. I've been doing that for a couple of years now. And so I've made all kinds of apps, and I stuck them up on this new website called StreamTeam.com. And it's TEEM, team, like to thrive. And I've made several apps using AI. They're AI based apps. For example, the newest one is a music maker. Sort of like Suno, except instead of it being a website, it's an app you run on your desktop if you have an NVIDIA GPU. You can sit there and make all the music you want for free. And all the other apps are like that as well. They're desktop apps that you can run on your Windows computer and do AI type things without having to pay to some company. Like for an account, just let your GPU do all the work. Or if you have multiple computers, multiple GPUs, some of my apps allow you to have multiple of them all running at the same time. This is one of them, this Tell Me a Tale AI. This is the one I haven't really made public to everybody else on the internet. I do have it available in my private Patreon Discord. If you were to sign up for that and go into the Discord, you'd see that I have Tell Me a Tale AI available for people who want to try it out. Now this is a different part. This is like version 2 of Tell Me a Tale AI. So if I go back to the home, this interactive story is the one that I've made available to the public. And it's pretty neat all by itself. And it's much more complete. This is the new version that's been added for, or new part that's been added for version 2. This one here I'm not going to go into. Again, I've got videos up already showing what it is, but basically you could think of it as a book writer where it provides choices on every page and other media like background music, animations that are playing, an image that gets created for each story page that is some image contextual to that page, and TTS speech. It generates the TTS on the so it generates all the stuff automatically as you go from page to page. So it could take like a minute or whatever to go from one page to the next as it's sitting there generating all the stuff and then reading the page to you and showing all these nice animations, like maybe snowfall if it's a snowy scene, or a rainfall if it's a rainy scene, or some animations look like campfire if you're outside at night by a campfire, that sort of thing. Um, And so it gives you choices at the bottom for each page. I want to do this next, or I want to do that next. Or you can type, there's a text box. You can say, well, I'm just going to type in what I want to do next. And so the whole book rolls out like that. It's sort of like a little, it's like it's the dungeon master, and it's walking you through a story that you can make choices on. But it doesn't have to be a Dungeons and Dragons type story. It could be whatever you want. And that's what it means by interactive. And so it's meant to entertain you essentially as you're making a story. It could be thought of as a game, or just as a fun tool for making stories. However you want to look at it. It could be a personal dungeon crawler, a personal, role playing game type app if you want to treat it that way. Now this is not. It has a lot of this automatic generation of the media on each page as you go from page to page. All that's stripped out. It's just made to have you create the story first. Um, it's because I didn't open the story. It has plugins for the AI, different AI parts, chat, obviously for writing the story and reviewing the story and all the other things it does for text-based AI work. But it can also, it does have the ability to generate images and generate TTS and generate music, background music, just like the other one does, the interactive one does. But and you said a voice, oh, not here, persona voice. Oh, this is the library of different voices, right? Because I'll get to that. And then there's all these settings you can make for the type of story you want, the style of story you want, and the rules for how you want the story to be, the writing style essentially, and some other settings for like the images that get generated, how you want that to work, what's the voice of the narrator, um, that sort of thing. Out, and then you start putting in, like the premise of the story. It has tools built in to help you expand on the premise. That go to AI and ask it to expand on this premise, and if you like it, you keep it. Generate an outline from the premise. So now it goes through and says, okay, here's the basic outline of the whole story. Um, let's see here. Right. So back here, you set the general page length. It can go larger than that when it generates the outline. Um, and in this case, it did. It went up to like, I think, 400 pages. Chapters. Yeah, pages 331, 359. So anyway, I generated a few of these till I got to one I liked. And then you say, okay, take this outline and premise and break it down into more detailed, so that each page has, or each page of each chapter has a general outline of what that page is about. So now you've got the outline enhanced with much more details. And this helps keep story consistency. Um, so if you just let it make up everything as it goes along, it could deviate from what you meant for the story to become. And so having it plan out all these parts ahead of time helps it keep that consistency as it goes throughout the whole process. Um, Dedupe, it doesn't matter. You could, like if it creates multiple character versions of the same character, the deduping will take care of that. We'll go back to the AI and basically say, look at this character list you generated and dedupe it. And it generates this character list also as part of this breakdown. So it's looking at, once again, the outline and the premise, and it ends up creating the characters as well along the way with background stories and descriptions of what they look like and their importance in the story and all this sort of thing, so that Um, and it's really all just text behind the scenes, like this, because it comes from the AI. And that all and you could pick a persona, which basically means, but the AI does it for you, but you could change it if you want. But personas are basically maps to character voice actor styles or voice actor types or voice actor examples, which is used in the TTS, um, the text to speech generation, if you use that. And so then you've got all of those parts of the story created, and then you move on to the actual generation of the story. I've already gotten this particular story started because I've been using this as my way of uh, uh, testing out the app as I'm building it, because I keep finding different things I don't like about it, and I want to update and make better. And so I'm using this story here as my test case. In the computer programming world, they often will call that something like eating your own dog food, for example, to make sure it's good. Okay, export. Okay, so I could say, it'll just, this is the breakdown outline, has it set to 420 pages, generate the whole book. Or I could say do a couple pages at a time, or redo some pages, and that's what I'm about to do here in a second. Because I just made another change to the prompts that tell the AI how to make stories. It, I guess I don't really need to get into what it was, but it was too flowery with its descriptions, and it would make descriptions that were just kind of asinine in some cases. Something like in this one part, he's talking about a bruise raised on this corpse's face, um, and it gave some kind of descriptor like a bruise raising on the corpse's face, like a like a truth denied or something like that. And it was just like, yeah, truth denied with a bruise on the face. I mean, maybe there's some kind of correlation it sees, but it wasn't. And it would do that over and over, not on every single page, but a lot. And so I ended up adding some changes to how the story gets generated just a moment ago. And I had it generate this page and the previous 3 pages, and it did fix that. And so I need to have it regenerate pages that, because I've got up to page 20 generated so far, and I'm reading through each one of these and editing them one by one and making changes to the app one by one as I go through. But so I had pre-generated all the way up to page 20, and then I started seeing some of those issues, and so I need to regenerate everything above 13. Huh. Okay, so this, it was time to bury his wife, and then looking back um, at her still face. So Kel is a warrior in the story, and he's just gotten back from a big battle with his king, and but his village was destroyed while he was gone. Mara is his wife. She's dead. Um, in the previous pages, he works his way up to finding her dead, and so anyway, those two parts don't make sense because I had changed this a few minutes ago because it was going to have him just walk off with her laying there dead after he found her and got her ring and that I don't want it to do that. I wanted him to bury his wife, but then didn't notice or forgot that down here he's looking back at her face. Well, he just buried his wife, so he can't look back at her face. So I'm going to edit that part to something else. Yeah. Okay. Save changes. So as you can see, you can make manual changes. You know, you don't have to just take whatever the AI generates for you. And and there's a lot more in this page about to show you where you can get. It's all AI assisted tooling everywhere here, except for once again like the inline manual editing you can do. But um, I don't really have anything else left to do on this page, so I'm just going to go to the next page, which maybe needs to be regenerated. Um, let's see here. I think I regenerated 12 and yeah, 12 and 13. Okay, so let's do 14, 15. And you can see right here it says it's generating those pages. This user interface isn't the version 2 interface, final interface. It's just a clean, plain interface because I don't want the AI working on, spending time thinking about the styling of the UI when I'm trying to just add a bunch of features in for now. Later, I will do another pass by this app and have it clean up all the user interface. I'll think of some way to make it look nicer. Obviously, like this right here would be like a little animated something that says, you know, I'm still generating, I'm still generating. I don't know if there's any feedback possible other than just a little animation, but okay, it's done. So then come over, go page, the new page 14. So I'll show off some of the other tools that I have built in here, like that you can use with a new page. Obviously, you can just sit here and just read it. You can have a quick read done to you, which I will do here in a second. A quick read just basically means using the TTS that is built into Windows, into the browser to do the TTS because it's just instant. The type of TTS I was talking about earlier that these things down here are for is to generate very high quality TTS, which is, you know, text to speech, very high quality, and for each character. As I mentioned before, the characters have personas. All of them do, which is basically a voice style for that particular character. And the reason that exists is so that as the page gets read with this TTS, each character and their voice reads it. Um, now I've already tested that, but I'm not going to do it right now because high quality TTS being generated on my computer here with a 4090 GPU and using an AI TTS high end TTS library that can run on my computer, um, it takes maybe like 3 minutes, let's say 3-4 minutes for it to generate one of these types of paragraphs, um, and it swaps back and forth automatically depending on if it's the narrator speaking or if it's one of the characters speaking. So it makes it nicer using the real TTS down here. But that's for later, like when the book is done, and then you want it to go through and generate all the content or all the media for every page, and then turn that into the final book or media book output. Um, for now, when you just want to, when you're going through the book, you just want to have it quickly read to you, you can use this feature up here, to this crappy TTS built into Windows to have it automatically do it for you. Now, there's other things down here like show page metadata, so you can get extra information about the page itself. It's essentially the concepts behind this page that the AI summarized and used as its thinking on that particular the context for that page. Build speaking script. That's the thing that goes through this page and decides which characters should be saying which parts for the TTS. So it's kind of like turning this into a script for voice actors. Generate images, because every page can have one or more images generated for it, and once again, it's high quality AI, contextual to this. It'll be different images applying to this page of the story. Generate editor review. Okay, so and you can obviously see the images in like a little image library here when you generate them. And once again, it takes, you know, whatever. I don't remember how long it takes to generate these images. They're not too long, maybe a minute or two or three. And okay, so let's check out Generate Editor Review. And what it will do, it goes to the AI, gives it this page and other types of prompts and context, and says, you know, evaluate this page and see if you think there's things that could be made better. And it highlights the parts for you and provides a list down here. And you can go through the list, and it says, okay, here's what the original was, where Mara kept twine, lamp hooks, and other small necessities in better times. Let's see here. What is it going on? He found the cord in the cottage hanging from a peg beside the hearth. It was only a leather thong darkened by smoke, and used the sort of thing she would have cut down for tying earth. Okay, I was concerned maybe it was going down some weird road where it didn't make sense to the story. I guess that the way the story left off in the previous page, he rose. Kel looked back once more to the ghost of his previous life, then turned towards the door. Okay, so he was inside, so that's good. All right, so he got that right. He, I was thinking maybe he was outside, but he found the cord. So, he found the cord instead of in the cottage, because let's just say near the door. He found the cord near the. Let's say found the cord hanging near the door. Okay. Oh, I don't want to use hanging, but two times there. He found the cord near the door, hanging. Okay, it's fine. Near the door, hanging from a peg beside the. Okay, so. Whoa, what happened? Where is my editor review? May have found a bug. Editor, generate editor review. So I generated the review. I came up here and read a little bit. I did an inline editing saved it, and then the editor review is gone. Let's generate it again and see what happens. Okay, so there's the review. It's all in place. Let's refresh the page, see if it's still there. It's still there. So then I came up here and read a little bit, hit that. It's still there. I don't know, let's type something. And it's gone. Okay, that's a bug. So let's jump over to cursor. You can see here this app that I've been working on is right here, and this is me using cursor over and over and over like crazy to get all the stuff done. As far as I'm concerned, cursor. I haven't tried them all, so I guess it's kind of a weird statement, but I have tried Codex and Cursor. I've not tried Claude's UI or Google's anti-gravity, but I love Cursor. I made my own cursor when OpenAI ChatGPT first came out with function calling, and as soon as Cursor came out, I just switched right over to it because they also had a nice team making a good, good big team making a nice product here faster than I can make mine. But anyway, so let me go and close that out. I'm going to give it the context of the code for the web page right there. Oh, those are ideas for form project story. Oh yeah, I'll do that some other day. Story dungeon crawler mode. Okay, so that's the code for the web page, and what I need to describe the situation to it. On the reader tab, when I have a editor review open, and then I click the button labeled enable inline editing. I think it was enable inline editing. Yeah, labeled and I make a small change and click the save button, and then scroll down to the editor review rows. I then see the editor review rows are missing entirely. I do not know if it is a user interface bug or if the actual review row data is lost. Can you tell what is happening? I'm going to switch that over to ask mode so it doesn't accidentally end up making changes right away. Sometimes it gets aggressive and goes, oh yeah, I see the answer here, I fixed it. Well, no, I didn't want you to change anything yet, necessarily. So put it into ask mode to prevent that. Okay, the implied product decision in the code is inline edits can invalidate suggestion anchors. So the app discards the review rather than trying to remap it. If you want different behavior, keep suggestions or clear ones that no longer match. That would be it. I see. Yeah, if I adjust the text, then those things don't necessarily apply anymore. Okay, have an idea. Plan the changes needed to detect if there is an editor review that will be invalidated when we click the edit inline, what is it? Enable inline editing. Okay. So if we at least give the user a warning when they click that, and I know, here, let's test to see if it's just clicking it. Or if I can click it, get the warning, and go, oh, I'm just going to click cancel then. And if that's okay. So there they are. Click enable editing, hit cancel, and they're still there. Good. All right. What if I hit that and hit save? No, they're gone then. All right. All right. So, okay. And this is what I was talking about earlier. I keep trying to make the story with this, but I have to stop over and over whenever I see something I don't like to get it fixed. Okay, it's an actual pop-up, and I think that's appropriate in this case. I don't want them most of the time, but um, this is an actual warning. I want them that they could lose that. I mean, they just have to click the button again, but still, they may be confused by it, like I just was, or not, or maybe they were very cost conscious and they don't want to regenerate things for no reason. Okay, so it's crap. I should have checked get status, but too late now. Let's go check. Let's see what files did it update. Just that one. Okay, so let's go copy over the all of the web content, even though it changed just one of the files. It's easier for me to do that, and then jump back over here and refresh, and it'll probably be there. For whatever reason, sometimes I have to actually restart the app. Okay, so I create an editor review. And then there they all are, and then I hit this. Okay, great. This page has an editor review. If you edit the text and save, the review will no longer apply and will be removed. You would need to run generate edit review again to get it back. Continue and edit. Okay. All right. So, and they're still there, but as long as I hit cancel, they're okay. All right. All right. So you just watched me fix a, well, not fix a bug. It was intended behavior. I just didn't remember it. And So now we got a little helper to make it so next time I will remember. All right. So now, how do you use these editor suggestions? Okay. Well, they highlight the parts they're going to change up here, and then down here you click on it, and it pops it down and shows you the part that is highlighted. Oh crap! I need to edit that. Crap. Um, all right. Screw it. I'll do it over. Yes, I know. All right. Then generate it again. Okay. So let's try this again. First one. Okay. So it wanted to wear Mara kept twine, lamp hooks, and other small necessities in better times. Change to where Mara kept twine and other small necessities. Yeah, that's still a little too flowery. Um, you don't want to keep saying after every sentence references to, you're in a bad situation. There's pages of that describing that. So cuts the slightly generalized sentimental tag. Exactly. That's a better way of putting it. And lets the ruined setting imply the loss more. Yeah, that's exactly what I was just saying. Thank you. Fix that. So it goes up there and changes it and highlights it green so you know that it's changed. So it's pretty nice. Just go through each one, listening to the silence press against the walls, listening to the silence inside the room. Yeah, once again, reduces personification that risks sounding portentous. Exactly. The simpler phrasing keeps the tone stark. Except, thank you. He threaded the ring through the leather with fingers that had dressed. Okay, what's the reason? Makes the contrast more concrete and physical, showing grief through action rather than abstract uncertainty. Thank you. That's probably true. What I want. Okay. Uh, Whoa, why did it jump up there? I must have clicked the one above it, probably. It would warm there soon enough, taking his heat as if it belonged to the living world and not the dead. It would warm there soon enough, though it had come from her dead hand. Yeah, exactly. This is exactly why I added this in the first place, because it really wants to be overly wordy, and this reviewer, this editor really helps pare that down. Nope, it's doing it. I'm not sure. Let's try it again. Yeah, interesting. I'm not sure. Sometimes it kind of jumps up a little bit. But he made a okay. So, but he made a vow with the same plainness Mara had brought to every hard thing in life. But he made a vow with the same plainness Mara had brought to every hard thing. Yeah, exactly. think it was a woodshed where she was out, because she went outside. Right? Yeah, the yard to the woodshed. Yep, she ended up in there. That's where she died. Okay. So it just doesn't realize that for some reason. Reject that one. The vow did not ease him, it narrowed him. The vow did not ease him, it gave his grief a direction. Yeah, I like that. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yep, same thing. It's reinforcing all of this. Him getting pissed. Okay, yeah. And gift his wife had left him, something worth becoming dangerous for. Carrying the last gift his wife had left him, a reason to become dangerous, sharpens the closing line and avoids the slightly vague something worth, giving the page a cleaner, harder final beat. I'll take it. Alrighty. So now now that you've seen how the editor works, so you can take a second pass by the story page after it gets generated with an editor specifically looking for problems. Okay, and so that now maybe I would want to hear the whole page, see how it sounds. I could once again just read it, or I can come up here and use this quick TTS. I want to try out one of these UK ones, which I added a little bit ago. I don't know what it's going to sound like, but let's see.
He found the cord near the door, hanging from a peg beside the hearth where Mara kept twine, lamp hooks, and other small necessities.
I do not like that as much as the other one, but the other one's not good either. But let's try this. Oops, let's try this one.
He found the cord near the door, hanging from a peg beside the hearth where Mara kept twine, lamp hooks, and other small necessities.
Yeah. Let's jump back down here and try this one again.
He found the cord near the door, hanging from a peg beside the hearth where Mara kept twine, lamp hooks, and other small necessities. It was only a leather thong, darkened by smoke and use, the sort of thing she would have cut down for tying herbs or mending a latch. Kale stood in the wreck of their single room with the ring in one hand and the cord in the other, listening to the silence inside the room. Outside, the village gave back its own dead quiet, no crying now, no crackle of fresh fire, only wind moving through broken places. He threaded the ring through the leather with fingers that had dressed wounds under arrow fire without trembling. Here they slipped once before he caught the thong and forced them steady. He drew the cord over his head and settled the ring beneath his tunic, under mail and hardened leather, until the diamond rested against the center of his chest. The metal was cold. It would warm there soon enough, though it had come from her dead hand. Kale closed his hand over it through the cloth. He did not pray. The gods had watched border villages burn before this one and kept their counsel. But he made a vow with the same plainness Mara had brought to every hard thing. I will not let them take all of you. Not the sound of your voice telling me glory does not patch roofs. Not the look you gave me when I lied badly. Not the years they cut down with you in that woodshed. And not this, he thought, pressing the ring harder into his sternum until pain answered. Not the debt. The vow did not ease him. It gave his grief a direction. Grief had threatened to leave him kneeling beside what was lost. Now it hardened into purpose. He would bury her with his own hands. He would learn who had ridden through this valley and under whose banner they had done it. If the trail led to deserters, he would kill them. If it led to officers, he would kill them too. If it led higher, to men who sent wolves into villages and called it war, he would climb until he reached them. Kale took up a spade from beside the hearth, his sword from the floor, and stepped back into the ash-gray day carrying the last gift his wife had left him, a reason to become dangerous.
Okay. That works for me. And then the next page. Go ahead, generate an editor review. I haven't read this page yet. The soldier learned not to waste hope by shouting into places already answered by flies. A soldier learned not to waste breath, shouting into places already claimed by flies. Tightens the line, avoids the slightly abstract phrasing of waste hope. Yeah, exactly. Slightly abstract. It's really abstract. It doesn't really belong there. While keeping the hard soldierly worldview. Exactly. Yeah, it tries to, AI tries to be a, I think the term's campy. I don't know, you have to tell it not to be too nice and too flowery, basically. Um, Alright, I wanted to understand the context up here in his they're stepping around the black ribs of a chicken coop and the collapsed frame of a cart he called out twice, not loudly. Okay, so he's just maybe calling out to the village. I'll find out when I have it read it to me. The dead were everywhere now that he had begun to see them properly, in ditches against the walls, half buried under thatch and beam. Now that he had started looking for them, the dead were everywhere in ditches against walls. Okay, that makes the sentence more immediate and concrete. Yes. Yeah, sometimes it kind of the where the auto scrolls off a little bit. Okay, so original. His shoulders and back took labor without complaint. The rest of him had gone quiet. His shoulders and back without the rest of him went quiet. The same hardness that used to settle over him before a breach. Quiet in the way it used to before a breach. Okay, yeah, I like that better. He killed it cleanly and added the wood around it to the pile. Where is that at? Killed what? He checked each house as he passed, kicking aside fallen rafters, beat the crackles of ash. Once he heard a sound and turned fast, swore to have it, only to find a goat trapped under a manger. One leg crushed. He killed it clean, added the wood around it to the pile. Oh, okay. I can use this opportunity to show you another feature now. A manger, under a manger. A manger shouldn't have kept it trapped, I wouldn't think. Too small. The goat should be trapped. Here, Or let me show you what I did. I just did it and didn't explain it. So I highlighted a chunk of text, right click in the middle of the highlight, suggest alternatives, and this will go back to the AI again. It's like a manual editor or one-off editor session, only to find a, okay, the goat should be trapped under something heavier than a manger. And he added the wood around it to the pile. What pile? There, do not mention a wood pile. I don't know what it's talking about, the wood pile. Probably find out afterwards that there was a wood pile somewhere. Get alternatives. Yes, okay. Once he heard the sound, once he heard a sound and turned fast, sword half raised, only to find a goat pinned beneath a fallen roof beam, one leg crushed. He killed it cleanly and dragged the splintered timber away for the pyre. A pyre for what? I had him bury his wife. What's the noise made? Maybe he's going to pyre other people. And from the village, he knew once a noise made, a sword half raised. He found it got trapped under a collapsed section of the roof. Finally crushed. He killed it cleanly and took what dry boards he could salvage for the pyre. All right. Strip the unusable wood from the wreck for burning. He killed it cleanly and hauled the broken planks into the green. I like this one better. All right, so it replaced that section right there, and let's see here. Yeah, and then it added it down here as a review item that's been, yeah, it's already done, but yeah, okay. So it's like an inline editor review. You can do wherever you want. So it's here. Here, next one. He killed it cleanly, added the wood around it to the pile. Oh, crap. They already had some kind of editor review for it, but I jumped ahead. He killed it cleanly, then tore apart the manger and added the wood to the, okay, yeah, just reject that. By midday, the pyre stood waist high and ugly. By midday, this is, I said exactly. And it always wants to throw little stuff like that in there. It was doing a lot more. Just that's some of the changes I made just before I started this video. Was telling it to how to be less overly descriptive, overly emotional, overly everything with its descriptors. Um, Cuts a judgment word that adds little exactly. So there was no priest, no oil, no linen, no words of speaking over such ruin, only labor, only the choice to do this himself instead of turning away. There was no priest, only labor, choice to do this himself instead of turning away. Only labor, only, and the choice to binds the fragments for a cleaner chaos while presenting. Okay. Reduces portentousness. I like the sound of that. And not in prayer, but in this one. Okay, yeah. That's the portentousness. It would do a lot. Um, it's stripped out. I've got most of that stripped out now by adding instructions to the page generator to not be pretentious. Basically, I told it 5 different ways. Not using the word pretentious each time, but it still does it. Here's it caught another one. So I said not, but in discipline. Okay, so he stood a moment with his head bowed, not in prayer, but in discipline, forcing his breath steady before he stood. Not in prayer, but to master breathing. Okay, yeah, it's going to have. I think it's going to have it have him put her on the pyre, even though I already said earlier that he's burying her. So I might go back and change that because it's just a little sentence I added in. Yeah, and I don't remember what was coming up in the story. So sometimes I'm messing it up. It's not it's messing up. I'm messing up because I don't understand what's going on. So I'm trying to fix something that doesn't need to be fixed. When he opened the door, he did it as a husband, not a soldier. Blah blah blah. When he opened the door, he made himself do it as Mara's husband, not as a soldier entering another run. That cost him more than the dead had. That cost him more than lifting the dead head. I don't know what that is even talking about, so I'll reject that. All right. Let's go to the next page. I bet it's. Let's see what it says about Mara. I think it's going to put her on the pyre. Page 16, breakdown. Chapter 1, page 16. As he works, Kel studies tracks and remnants of weapons, concluding the attackers were not common bands but soldiers or mercenaries. And across the border, practical necessity research those Kel gathers wood, checks for more fires, and begins the grim way of preparing the dead for burning before. Okay. He builds funeral pyres for his neighbors and for Mara. Okay, so I had not read that. So I need to go back and fix what I had broke. Let's go back to previous page. Yeah, right there. That's what I added. It was time to bury his wife. Yeah, I thought he was just going to walk away and leave her laying there the way the story was playing out. So I changed it. I need to remember to look ahead and see if it's leading up to something in the story. It was time to bury his wife. No. Okay, the village waited and stood a moment longer in the woodshed, forcing his breath into water. The village waited in ruin, and somewhere beyond it, men still lived. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Okay, so now let's go back forwards. And then here he would bury her with his own hands. The reason it generated that is because of what I said, and I changed it to in the previous page. It was trying to keep consistency, and so I started making it go down some weird road that it doesn't. Oops, that it shouldn't be going down. Oh yeah, yeah. These are all done, so that's fine. You can get rid of it. All right. He would bury her with his own hands. Yeah, and this is why it's good not to generate like 20 pages at a time, like I kept doing over and over, and then find out on page 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever that there was something messed up, and I have to regenerate those pages again for no reason. Because I can make it, you can make a mistake like I just did, and then have to regenerate those pages again anyway, because those pages are meant to be based on the previous pages. And if you change the previous pages, and then those pages that you had generated, ahead of time, like 20 at a time, they won't match what you had just changed it to. And so it's better to generate either the whole thing all in one shot, if you can get away with that, or generate a couple pages at a time and read through them and do like I'm doing here. Um, so get rid of that. Okay. Okay, so then here. Okay, and then I don't know what's going on in the story on this page. It's not a pyre, though, even though it mentioned it here. Around him stand blackened cottage frames, a rough pyre, salvage. Oh, it's the image description, yeah. But he's doing something else in here. Let's see.
He worked until sweat dried cold beneath his mail, and while he worked he watched. Habit would not let him do otherwise. The lane held more truth than prayer ever had. Hoof prints had churned the frozen mud near the square, but not in the wild scatter of raiders drunk on easy killing. The mounts had been reined in, turned, held in place. Men had dismounted in order. He saw the deep heel marks where they had formed ranks before spreading through the village, and the narrower prints of lighter boots moving behind them, camp followers, perhaps, or men used to knives and torches rather than shield walls. At the shrine wall he found a broken spearhead trodden half into the earth. Not village work. The socket was too fine, the iron folded and tempered by a professional smith. He turned it in his fingers, wiped soot away with his thumb, and found the faint stamp near the base, 3 notches around a crowned sun. Cale closed his hand around the metal until the edges bit. He had seen that mark in the Eastern Campaign, on supply crates, on officers' buckles, on the dead who wore the enemy king's colors. Not border thieves, then. Not hungry deserters. Soldiers, or men paid and equipped by soldiers. That changed the shape of the crime without lessening it. A bandit might burn for plunder or panic. An army burned because someone had ordered a road cleared, a district punished, a people taught fear. He looked over the cottages again and saw method where grief had first shown only ruin, the well spared so horses could drink, the grain stores split open and spoiled, the strongest houses fired first to spread confusion. This had not been rage. It had been doctrine. He moved to the edge of the yard where the ground dipped soft beneath the ash and crouched despite the protest in his knees. There, impressed cleanly in the mud, lay the print of a nailed cavalry boot beside the smaller mark of a woman's shoe. Mara's, perhaps, or another villager driven at sword point. The boot had pivoted inward. A struggle. Beside it he found a snapped leather thong and a bead of blue glass no bigger than a pea. He knew that glass. Southern trade, cheap and bright, often braided into the beards or harness tassels of mercenary companies who sold themselves to whichever banner promised silver. Enemy regulars with hired carrion at their heels. Efficient enough to win battles. Base enough to strip villages after. For a moment the old soldier in him did what the husband could not, it counted numbers, estimated discipline, judged direction. 20 riders at least. More on foot. They had come from the north road and left east by the river track, likely rejoining a larger column. Useful knowledge. Useless knowledge. It would not warm Mara's hands or raise the dead from the square. Yet as Cale straightened, spearhead in one fist and the smell of ash in his lungs, his grief hardened into something cleaner than anguish and more dangerous than sorrow. The men who had done this belonged to a chain of command, and chains could be followed.
Okay. What was I thinking about? Oh, yeah, up here at the top. I'll let the, well, I guess he worked until sweat dried cold beneath his mail. And while he worked, he watched. Oh. Um, While he worked, he gathered facts. Okay, sorry, I had a little phone message there to check. So, he worked until sweat dried cold beneath his. Oh, right. I wanted to change that. Um, Habit would not let him do otherwise. Right. Because he's a soldier. The lane held more truth than prayer ever had. The lane. I don't know what that means, but let's give the editor review a chance before we start making any more manual changes. Oh, there was a feature change I was thinking about. What was that? Before the phone dinged. Uh, I don't remember what it was now. I'll remember later. All right. Oh, now I remember. Right. So, is it already here somewhere? Show page metadata. Summary. While building the pyre kill, reads the tracks and debris in the ruined village and realizes the attackers were disciplined enemy soldiers and mercenaries, not common bandits. So if I, it's page 16. So if I go to the breakdown, go to page 16. As he works, Kel studies the tracks, remnants of weapons, concluding the attackers are not common bandits or soldiers, but mercenaries tied to enemies across the border. It's not exactly the same. Um, that is its reinterpreted summary. So, okay, so it does not have it here. So what I want is for the breakdown page description to be included here somewhere so I know what the page is supposed to be about without having to go back there and look it up. So let's come over here and ask it to think about that. Okay. On the breakdown tab, there, um, each page listed has a short description. When I open a page in the Reader tab, I would like that small description to be displayed somewhere so I know what the page is about in general before I read it. Suggest something. See what it comes up with. Okay, summary, the breakdown, short description. description is summary or beat. The reader already stores a related summary short but hides it under show page metadata after the text. For what this page is about before I read it, the most direct UX is a thin intro line above the page text populated from summary or beat with summary short as fallback labeled so it's clearly the plain beat, not the story itself. Make a plan for these changes. Make the changes. Okay, let's go over and get those changes copied back over to where the exe lives. Go ahead and refresh page 16. And there it is, chapter 1, Ashes of Victory, scene beat. Okay, it needs to be a little bit more a separator. There needs to be a clear separation, a clear visual separation between the beat and the main story text. Alright, do it again. It didn't do anything. Hold it. Let's try restarting that. Usually when it doesn't look like anything changed, it's because for whatever reason, that change required more than just a refresh of the page. Like that. That's exactly what I was asking for. Chapter 1, Ashes of Victory, scene beat as he works, kills, studies, tracks, and evidence of weapons, concluding the attackers are not common. Yeah, so as soon as I come here, I immediately know what the page is supposed to be about and where I'm at and stuff. That's nice. Okay, so then we go through the editor suggestions. Here, actually, let me save that since it worked. What was it? Okay, so got that change saved. Okay, the lane held more truth than prayer ever had. The lane yielded more truth than prayer ever had. Okay, it's by lane. Probably means he's walking down, like a road in the village. And they're immediately talking about hoof prints, so it's going to imply that. Yeah, it's right. It's not, everything's about truth and honor and emotions and stuff. used two knives, or looters used two knives and torches rather than, yeah. Funny, I don't know why it does that. Let's see up here, and then it jumps down. Must be just some kind of border area here where if you're over that little bit, its calculation scrolls up a little bit. Okay, Kale closed his hand around the metal until the edges bit. Kale closed his hand around the metal until its edges bit his palm. Okay. Yeah. Nature instead of shape. Change the nature of the crimes on the shape. Yeah. And less metaphorical. Yeah, it likes to be very metaphorical, very pretentious, very it's trying too hard to sound smart. But this editor, the prompts I have in it, doesn't like that stuff. And as you can see, it's like, no, no. It's doing exactly what I wanted it to do. I was having to manually do all this stuff before. Um, reason. A people taught fear feels inflated for the scale of the scene. Yeah, thank you. Tone it all down. An army burned because someone had ordered a road cleared. A distinct A district punished, a people taught fear. A village punished. An army burned because someone had ordered a road cleared. A district punished, a village taught fear. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Okay, tightens the sentence and removes a slightly explanatory clause, improving flow. Over the cottages again, and saw method where grief had first shown only ruin. The well spared so horses could drink. The grain stores split open and spoiled. The strongest houses fired first to spread confusion. He looked over the cottages again and saw method where grief had first shown only ruin. The well spared for horses. The grain store split open and spoiled. The strongest houses fired first to spread confusion. What was the difference? He looked over the cottages again and saw method where grief had first shown only ruin. Thus well spared. So okay. When looking at an individual editor review item, it shows original versus changed to examples or whatever text. What change would be needed to highlight the diffs between the two? I want it to immediately draw my eyes right to what's different between the original and the change. Yeah, I don't know what's talking about there. change I want is in the example text itself inside the individual editor review panel. I do not want the main story text changed at all. Stop using text context for the two. Text context, what is that? Can't pull the Control F in here. Text context only inserts plain text, so there is no markup and nothing to highlight. Okay, so if I don't like the results, I'll just roll back. The only change I want is in the example text. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, go. Okay, that's what it was talking about. Good. Okay, so plan the changes. Make the changes. Thank you. That's exactly what I wanted. Didn't do anything up here? No. Good. That's exactly what I wanted. I just wanted to be able to quickly see what the difference was between the two. So, tightens the sentence and removes a slightly explanatory clause. So horses could drink for horses. Yeah. See here. Well spared so horses could drink. Well spared for horses. The well spared for horses. No, I like that one. Oh, this is so much better. This had not been rage. It had been doctrine. It's not been rage. It had been procedure. Yeah. Let's come back here and save that. Highlight diffs in editor panel. Okay. Next one. Huh. What's that about? Adds a useful concrete mark of a woman's shoe. Mark of a soft-soled woman's shoe. Like it? Driven there at sword point. Driven at sword point. Driven there, or another villager driven there at sword point. Yeah. Small syntax adjustment for smoother readability. Carrion at their heels. Scavengers at their heels. Carrion used for people is vivid but slightly strained. Yeah, exactly. Carrion is usually something. Carrion crawlers, vultures, something. Useful knowledge, useless knowledge. Useful knowledge, useless to the dead. Keeps the rhythm while tying the thought more directly to the scene's stakes. Okay. Yeah, as Cal straightened, spearhead in one fist, and the smell. Yeah, there's no. I didn't like that. I forgot about that smell. Smell of ash in his lungs. What the fuck's that mean? There's no smell in your lungs. Yeah, as Cal straightened, spearhead in one fist, ash in his lungs, his grief hardened into something older than anguish and more dangerous than sorrow. Yeah, tightens the phrasing and swaps cleaner for colder. Yeah, matches the tone, avoids a slightly abstract and moral implication. Yeah. I was wondering what it was going to say, why it took out the smell, but it doesn't really just say. Really say it says it tightens the phrasing, but it just doesn't make sense. Smell of ash in his lungs. Yeah, weird description. All right, so that page is done. All right, let's get a little adventurous here and have it regenerate 17 through 20. Those are left over from earlier. Let's see if it can do 4 pages in a row without me messing up the story. All right, generate. Yeah, I need to put like an animation right here to make it clear because you could easily miss that. I know it's there because I made this app, but someday somebody else using it needs to have some better UI. I wonder if the streams are still going. Need to move the browser over to the other screen so I could watch. Let's see here. Okay. Looks like the stream is still going. See if I could. Can I see it on YouTube? Oh, wrong browser. Let's pull this one up. Move it over. Yeah, it's still working. Okay. Let's go ahead and close that. Oh, right. How do I check chatting with this? So if somebody did chat to me, okay, I'd see it over there. No live chats yet. I assume both YouTube and Rumble would show up over there. Not sure. Okay. So my assumption is nobody's seen the stream at all or decided not to chat. So I'll have to see later if that's the case. Well, hold it. I should be able to like go right to the on the actual stream page for YouTube. Okay, yeah, okay. I see chat's there too, and there's nothing. So my assumption is nobody's seen this. Okay, all right, great. It's all working. So okay, it's done generating those 4 pages. Let's come back over here. Okay, so here's the first new page. So what's this about? He builds a funeral pyres for his neighbors and for Mara, and the ritual reveals both his discipline and the hard cultural code that he has shaped that has shaped him into a weapon of kings. Okay.
By late afternoon he had raised 2 pyres. The first stood on the village green, broad and ugly, built from doors, rafters, fence rails, and the cooper's split staves. He laid his neighbors there by household when he could manage it, keeping kin together, setting the old beside the old and children between their mothers if he knew them. It was not piety. It was order. In the king's service he had seen fields where the dead were stripped, counted, and tipped into trenches by the hundred. That was for armies. Villages deserved names, even when no one remained to speak them. Kale worked with the same care he had once given to stacking shields before an assault, each body placed so the fire would take cleanly and not leave half-burned limbs for scavengers at dawn. Mara's pyre he built apart, in the orchard behind the cottage where spring would have come first. The apple trees stood black and bare, their lower branches singed, but the ground there was less fouled by blood. He carried her from the woodshed in both arms, wrapped in the least burned blanket he could find. She weighed less than memory said she should. At the pyre he set her down on a bed of split wood and laid her green cloak over her, though it was scorched through at one edge. For a long moment he looked at the place where the ring had been and felt the hard shape of it under his tunic. In his father's house, and in the barracks after, he had been taught the same lesson in different words: what is yours, you keep; what is entrusted, you defend; what you fail to defend, you avenge. Kings liked such laws in their men. They made obedience sound like honor. He struck tinder by the green first. Flame took slowly, licking through damp wood, finding cloth, hair, old straw. Smoke thickened and rolled low across the square. Kale did not bow his head. The dead had no use for tears once the work began. He carried the torch to the orchard and stood with it near Mara's feet. Here, at last, discipline faltered. Not in his hands they stayed steady but in the thought that came unwanted and plain: if he lit this fire, there would be no task left between him and the fact of her absence. He almost set the torch aside. Almost chose the cowardice of one more hour. Then he touched flame to the kindling and watched it catch beneath the wood, because the code that had made him a weapon had left him this much mercy at least, the duty to finish what love could not save.
Alright, I'll accept that page for now. Next page. When the pyres are lit, Kale's grief finally breaks into rage, and he silently condemns the enemy king, the war, and even his own commanders for leaving the border exposed.
The orchard fire caught faster than the one on the green. Dry applewood burned hot, and the blanket over Mara had already begun to sink into itself, edges curling black. Beyond the trees, smoke from the larger pyre spread across the village in a low gray sheet, turning the ruined cottages into shapes without detail. Kale stood between the 2 fires with the torch hanging loose in his hand until it burned down near his fingers. He dropped it and ground the ember into the frost. Heat touched his face. His back stayed cold. He had thought grief would hollow him cleanly, leave only ache and weariness. Instead it found a harder road out. He saw again the stamped spearhead in his palm, the ordered hoof prints, the spared well, the grain ruined so no one could return and live. This had not happened because cruel men had wandered by. It had happened because somewhere a commander had marked a map and judged this valley expendable. Somewhere an enemy king had sent riders south with iron, fire, and permission. Somewhere Kale's own officers had known the border was thinning and had stripped it anyway for glory on distant fields. They had called men east, west, wherever banners mattered more than farmsteads. They had left old men, wives, and children to stand in the path of armies with hatchets and prayer. His jaw locked until pain ran up into his temples. He wanted names now, not merely faces. The enemy king first, crowned over ash and fed by villages like this one. But rage did not stop there. It turned, sharp as a blade in close quarters, toward the dead court he had served. Toward polished captains who spoke of necessary losses over wine. Toward the king he had followed without question, decent man, or not, because decency had not kept watch on these roads. Kale had spent years obeying men who measured land in marches and supply lines. Standing in the smoke of his own home, he understood what their arithmetic cost. The thought should have shamed him. Instead it steadied him. If the world was ruled by men willing to spend villages for advantage, then he would stop asking what was permitted. He stood with Mara burning behind him and his neighbors before him, broad shoulders squared inside soot-streaked mail, weathered face lit red by the pyres, gray eyes gone hard as winter iron. In the silence he passed sentence on kings, on captains, on every hand that had signed, ordered, written, or looked away. Then he turned toward the road east, where the killers had gone, and began to plan how a single soldier might make himself costly to an army.
Okay, I'll keep that. Next page. Just a second. I got another phone contact here I'm dealing with. Okay, so night came without ceremony. Okay, page 19. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and have it quickly read over this page again.
Night came without ceremony. The last color drained from the sky, and the village settled into a red, uneven dark lit by the two pyres and the occasional collapse of a roof beam into coals. Kale took his place in the lane between the green and the orchard, where he could see both roads and the black line of the river track beyond the fields. His sword rested bare against his shoulder. Smoke had soaked into his hair, his mail, the leather at his wrists. It stung his eyes, but he welcomed that too. Pain was useful. It kept a man upright when grief tried to bend him. He listened as he had listened on night watches before a siege, for tack creaking, for iron striking stone, for the low murmur of men who thought darkness made them safe. The village gave him other sounds instead. Timber settling. Fat hissing in the fire. Once, far off, a fox barked from the hill scrub. No hoofbeats came. No voices. The men who had done this were miles away by now, sleeping under blankets, bellies full from stolen grain and meat, perhaps laughing over what they had taken. Kale pictured them with a clarity that made his grip tighten. He found that some hard part of him wanted them to return, not because he thought he could save anything left here, but because killing until they dragged him down seemed cleaner than dawn. The thought did not shame him. That was what troubled him. He had stood in shield walls with men who wanted glory, revenge, plunder, absolution. He knew the look of those appetites. Tonight he found one of them in himself and did not turn away. If riders came, he would meet them in the lane and spend his life as dearly as he could. If they did not, he would rise with the light and follow. Either way, the man who had walked home hoping for bread, warmth, and Mara's voice was gone. Hours passed. Frost silvered the broken cart by the well and edged the corpses of chickens in the yard where they lay stiff among ash. Kale did not sit. He stood broad and still in the fireglow, weathered face cut by red light, haunted gray eyes fixed on the eastern road. Beneath his tunic the ring rested cold against his chest, a small hard weight that kept him from mistaking death for duty. He had wanted an enemy to come out of the dark and end the matter. None did. By the time the stars sharpened above the smoke, he understood that living until morning would be the first punishment.
Okay. Well, sounds like it's getting better. those last few changes that I made to the writer rules, the novel writer rule seems to have made it do better. So that's like 3 pages in a row I didn't really need to make any changes to. I can go back and do editor reviews later to all of them, but for right now, that was pretty good. Let's do this.
Dawn showed him what the dark had hidden by mercy. The fires had burned down to long beds of red under white ash. Smoke drifted low across the green and orchard, thin now, without urgency. Beyond it the road east lay empty, the ruts frozen hard, the hedges rimed silver. No riders had circled back to gloat. No scavengers had come to test the dead. The world had gone on with a flat indifference that made the ruin seem smaller and, for that reason, harder to bear. In battle a man could point to the line where death came from. Here there was only aftermath and a road already cooling behind the guilty. Kale lowered his sword at last. His arm had stiffened in the night. When he flexed his hand, pain ran through the knuckles and up the forearm like a rebuke. He welcomed that too. It was simpler than the other thing pressing in on him, not grief, which had settled into him like iron, but uselessness. He had spent the night ready to kill and found no one to kill. Fury, denied an object, turned meaner. It searched for whatever remained within reach. The enemy king. His own dead commanders. Himself, for marching where he had been ordered while this valley stood open. None of them stood before him now. Only smoke, frost, and the work still left. He sheathed the sword and went first to the orchard. Mara's pyre had fallen inward. He stood over it a moment, broad shoulders bowed not with tenderness but with fatigue, his weathered face gray in the morning light. Beneath his tunic the ring rested against his chest, hidden and intact, the one thing fire had not claimed. He did not speak to her. Words would have been for his sake, and he had no patience for that. Instead he took up the spade again and turned toward the green, where bone and half-burned timber waited to be gathered. That choice told him more than the night's vigil had. Revenge would not begin with a charge down the eastern road, sword bare, and reason gone. It would begin here, with cold hands and ugly tasks, with taking account of what had been done and who had done it. The lesson tasted bitter because it was the same one war had taught him 100 times and he had never truly learned. Rage was cheap, pursuit required discipline. By the time the sun cleared the hills, Kale had accepted the first cruelty of survival that he would have to live long enough to be useful.
Okay, that one wasn't bad either. So for those who happen to just pop in the middle of the video, that TTS you heard there is pretty crappy. It's the built-in TTS for Windows in the browser, but it's quick, super quick. I don't think it's even AI at all. Now this has down here a totally different TTS and image generation and all that stuff. And this is for later when the book is done, and I'll come back through and I will have it. I'll probably do like one page at a time just to check it out. But at some point, I'll end up hitting an option that sweeps through every page in the whole story and regenerates the TTS and adds images generation and other types of generation, background music and other media, so that this book, the story, becomes like an animated online experience where you have the book being read to you, and not by that crappy TTS, but by this high quality TTS. So whereas that TTS is almost up here as quick, like it says, right, a quick read. This, just to generate one paragraph like this, might take like 4 minutes with this TTS down here. But the quality of the voice is much nicer. It sounds like a real narrator reading, and it also supports each character. So if once the characters start talking, these past several pages have been basically the narrator, but describing everything. But once the characters start talking, this TTS down here has a different voice per character, a different persona or voice actor per character, and it will it uses those to generate all the TTS. This quick one is just for, like you see me doing here, just to get a quick review of the page. Okay, so that's the end. I've gotten up to page 20 now, and that's pretty good. I've gotten most things fixed. I think that I had for the app as I'm doing each one of these pages. So let's generate from 20. No, that's 20. 21 to, let's say, 25. A few more pages. Once again, it shows right here that it's doing it. As I said earlier, at some point, this whole user interface will be replaced or enhanced or whatever, so all the same buttons and everything's here, but things like that will have animated progress bars and nicer collaring of some kind, collars on the page, or maybe I'll make the page look like a wooden desk, maybe with a like a quill pen and ink jars and stuff, maybe to give it like an old writer's desk type feel or something, maybe. I don't know, we'll see. But right now, the looks of this is all supposed to be functional, not pretty looking. Right now, it's just for me to use. I'm the only one who has this version 2 of Tell Me a Tale AI, which has the novel generator in it. And so really, it's only for me anyway, so it doesn't need to look nice. While waiting on it, I'll jump over to a browser real quick and jump to, what was I? Oh, StreamTeam. Yeah. So I'm making this video today for StreamTeam, and what this does is, well, it has two parts. It has a Story Runners, which is a Patreon group membership, which gives you access to a private Discord where you can talk to me, talk to other members, get in there. I have version 1.0 of Tell Me a Tale AI. This right here is available in the Story Runners Discord to download. I put other things in that Discord, like places to go find free text-to-speech voices or plugins, extra plugins for the tools, things like that. So there's membership benefits or whatever. And then each one of these down here, except for this, Tell Me a Tale AI, like I said, is only, at least for now, only for the Story Runners membership. But the rest of these you can get here on the website. So this is an app that shows you how you can go get these super cheap customizable touchscreens online, and then this app allows you to create whatever the skin is you want to be on those touchscreens and the hotspots, and it turns them. It has a couple different ways it works, but the way I mostly use it is it turns these into a Windows Bluetooth keyboard, and so when you touch hotspots, it sends keyboard commands to whatever app you're in at the time. And then Whisper Stream does text-to-speech, speech-to-text using AI, and that's all it does. So it's just for, it's audio AI. And then Lip Sync Flow creates video. Uses AI to create text-to-speech, and then it takes the audio from the text-to-speech and an image of a character and makes that character speak the text-to-speech audio. And so it's a video generator where you create a character in a scene and make them say something. My Deep Thinker is an LLM, chat LLM for your desktop. No online account needed. Using a new library that came out a couple months ago that is super lightweight and small. It's not the best LLM in the world, but if you want a completely offline LLM, you can use that. And if you have NVIDIA GPUs for all this stuff. And then the most recent one is Sing Me a Song AI. that generates music like that Suno website does, except this is all on an app all on your PC with the AI on your PC if you have an NVIDIA GPU, and so you can sit there and generate music free. I made a game that's in here and some extra content that I call educational content I put in there, but you can get these apps here on this website, and that's what this video oh, here. That's what the video for that I'm making showing this off is presenting some extra details about upcoming changes to Tell Me a Tale AI. Alright, let's go to the next page. Let's see here, what is it about? Kel searches the village one last time for keepsakes or records, finding almost nothing worth saving except a few personal items and the memory of what was lost. Very short. Read it.
By noon he had done all that fire and spade could do. What remained was the meaner labor of deciding what the dead had left behind. Cale went back through the village one house at a time, kicking open swollen doors, stepping over fallen beams, searching not for plunder but for names. A tax roll, a marriage record, a chest with seals intact, anything that might outlast Ash and tell another place who had lived here before soldiers made a lesson of them. In the Reeves house he found the strong box split and emptied, its lock broken with a hammer rather than a blade. In the shrine, the painted saints had blistered black on the wall, and the ledger shelf had collapsed into a drift of wet pulp. He crouched and turned pages that came apart in his hands, ink running into his gloves like old blood.
Yeah, deciding didn't make any sense there. He didn't decide things. He found things, or didn't find things, whichever. He didn't decide it. Searching not for plunder but for names. Searching not for plunder but for proof of who had lived here. Yeah, none of that matters. Let's go to the next page to see what it's about. Some things would not take the fire. Okay, alright, so the story goes on. Okay, text anything that might outlast Ash should tell another. Yeah. I don't like this page, is what this boils down to. 21. Regenerate. You can see it regenerating right there. Okay. So let's go back. See, by noon he had reduced the village to what could be carried.
By noon he had reduced the village to what could be carried in memory and what could not. He went house to house one last time, not as a mourner now but as a man taking inventory after a defeat. In the Reeves cottage he found the tax chest split open and the wax tablets trampled into the floorboards, names and measures blurred under soot and boot marks. At the shrine, the marriage book had burned from the edges inward until only the iron clasps and a fistful of blackened leaves remained. He turned them carefully with scarred fingers, hoping for some scrap that still held ink, but the pages came apart at his touch. The dead would have no record beyond what he remembered, and memory was a poor archive when enough winters passed. Some things would not take the fire. By the well lay the blackened shape of old Harn's mule, too swollen and stiff to drag far. In the cellar of the miller's house, where the roof had fallen in and smothered the flames, Cale found 3 bodies half crushed under stone and beam, preserved from burning by the same weight that had killed them. He fetched rope, a hand cart with 1 cracked wheel, and the spade again. The labor was slow and foul. He worked with his jaw set and his sleeves tied over his mouth, hauling flesh gone heavy with cold, levering timber aside inch by inch, stopping only when his back threatened to fail him. There was no dignity left to give them except effort, so he gave that without stint. He chose a strip of ground beyond the orchard where the soil was less frozen and the roots ran thin. The grave he dug long and deep, broad enough for what the pyres had refused. Frost clung to the first foot of earth, beneath it the ground turned black and wet, smelling of clay. He lowered the bodies in by rope where he could, by his own arms where he could not. Harn's mule went last, because leaving it for wolves felt like another surrender. When the pit was filled, he tamped the earth flat with the back of the spade and stood looking at the mound, chest heaving under soot-streaked mail. Markers were harder. The shrine had
Okay, we do not want to bury the mule. Well, I could just delete that sentence, and that will fix that. Until I find out later, there's something about a zombie mule in the story that I didn't realize, and then I'll have to come back here and fix it. Just a joke. Okay, so let's save that. Legible to him in a new and hateful way. Legible. Hmm. By evening, the village had become distant. Huh. I wonder if I can add that as a feature. In the Reader tab, when I have a section of the story text highlighted and I click the quick, quick read button, I want to have the TTS only read the highlighted text. So I put it in ask mode and get it to think about this problem, which means it goes and looks at the code and figures out if it can do it, if there's any blockers or whatever. Clicking a button often collapses this section in some browsers. If you see this section disappear for your handler, I don't think so. Okay. Okay. Plan these changes. Okay. Okay, so I wanted to be able to like highlight a part. Hold it, I need a refresh. So will it read that? That's the question.
By evening the village had become distant to him in a new and hateful way. Not as lanes, cottages, and fields, but as sites of killing, burning, and burial. Here the square where neighbors had laughed on market days. Here Mara's orchard. Here the mound above what fire had spared. He stood in the middle of it with his pack at his feet and understood that if he slept under his own roof, he would be bedding down in a graveyard and calling it home. The thought settled the matter. He took one last look at the stakes, touched the ring beneath his tunic as if confirming a wound, and turned from the cottage without going inside.
Okay, perfect, it worked. Save that. All right, very good. So, a surviving elder urges kill to carry word to the king and army, framing his next step not as healing but as duty sharpened by personal ruin. Okay, let's see what's in this one.
He had reached the lane when he heard the cough. Kale turned with his hand already on his sword. The sound had come from the tumbled shell of the cooper's shed near the river track, a place he had passed twice and judged empty. He crossed the yard at once, boots crunching frost, and shoved aside a charred plank that had fallen across the doorway. Inside, under a lean of broken staves and wet thatch, an old woman sat wrapped in a horse blanket gone black at one edge. Her white hair hung loose around a face lined deep as split bark. One ankle was bound with a strip torn from a curtain, stiff with dried blood. Mother Sella, who had delivered half the village and buried the other half. She looked up at him without surprise. "Took you long enough, Captain." "I'm no captain." Kale crouched and saw at once why she had not moved. The ankle was swollen near double, and the shed had trapped the night's cold around her. He offered his arm. She slapped it away with more force than he expected. "Save your strength. I can stand if I must." Her eyes went past him to the smoke over the green. Whatever she read there tightened her mouth, but she did not ask for names. "Listen instead. Riders came after dusk. Not the ones who burned us. Our own. 4 of them, hard-run and half-starved. They saw the fires from the ridge, watered at the stream, and rode east before moonrise. Kale felt something in him go still. "Scouts?" he asked. "Stragglers," she said. "Men trying to find the army, same as you ought to be." He said nothing. The road east had already taken shape in his mind as a private hunt, a line between himself and the men who had killed Mara. Sella watched him long enough to catch that thought and despise it. "You want names," she said. "Good. Names live in camps, not in ditches behind raiding parties. If the border's broken this far, the king must hear it from someone who has seen the cost. Not a reeve. Not a frightened boy. You." Her gaze dropped to his mail, the campaign scars on his hands, the way he stood even now as if waiting for an order. "You know how armies lie to themselves. Go tell them what their victory bought." Kale looked past her through the cracked wall, toward the 3 stakes standing over ash and fresh earth. He had wanted revenge simple enough to hold in one hand. Sella offered him something worse: distance, command tents, men with seals and excuses, perhaps a king who would listen too late. Duty had brought him away from home and left it undefended. Now duty, stripped of honor and comfort, asked him to go back to the same machine and force it to look at what it had done. He bent, got her arm over his shoulder despite her muttered curse, and lifted her carefully into the light. "There's a shepherd's bodai 2 miles west," she said through her teeth. "I know." Kale steadied her weight and turned from the eastern road only long enough to see her safe. After that, he would ride for the army not to serve, but to bear witness like a blade.
Okay, I'll take that one. And the rest of it seemed okay to me, if I remember right. So go to the next page. Oops. Kel arms himself from the village remnants, taking only what he can carry, and his departure feels less like a journey than an exile from the life he was meant to have. Exactly.
He settled Mother Sella in the shepherd's bodai with a bucket of water, a heel of bread, and enough split wood to last 2 nights if she was careful. She dismissed him before he had finished stacking it. "Go on," she said, wrapped in blankets by the cold hearth, her lined face pale but hard. "If you linger, you'll start pretending there's something here to save." Kale inclined his head and left without answering. She had earned the right to cruelty. Outside, the afternoon had gone thin and colorless. Smoke still marked the village behind him in a low gray smear against the hills. He returned once, not to mourn but to provision. In the Reeves' ruined storehouse he found a sack of oats split open under fallen plaster and salvaged what had stayed dry, pouring it into a feed bag. From the smithy he took a serviceable whetstone, a skinning knife, and a bundle of nails wrapped in oilcloth. At his own cottage he stopped on the threshold and no farther. The roof had held there, the bench by the door still stood, Mara's blue cloak hung from its peg with one sleeve darkened by soot. He looked at it only long enough to know he would not touch it. Instead he took his winter cloak, a spare shirt, a flint case, and the old cavalry bow he had left above the hearth when farming was meant to be enough. The bowstring had dried but not cracked. He tested it once and slung it over his shoulder. By the well he chose a mare from the 3 surviving animals, a rangy bay with a scar across the flank and the patient eyes of a beast that had already seen too much. He saddled her with tack stripped from the dead and packed his gear with a soldier's economy: oats, waterskin, blanket roll, whetstone, knife, bow, sword, spade lashed behind the saddle until he thought better of it and set the spade aside. A man could not carry a grave with him. Last, he stood before the stakes beyond the orchard, broad and still in his mail and weather-stained cloak, and pressed his thumb against the ring beneath his tunic until the edge bit skin. When he rode east, he did not look back at the cottage. That omission cost him more than any farewell would have. The road left the valley between bare hedges and frozen fields, plain as a command. Somewhere ahead were the army, the king if he still lived, and the men who had burned his home under cover of war. Cale sat straight in the saddle, weathered face set, haunted gray eyes on the road. He had packed for pursuit, but each hoofbeat carried him farther from the life he had built with his own hands. By dusk the village would be behind the hills, and he would belong again to iron, orders, and blood.
I didn't like that sentence and thought it was unnecessary, so I'm getting rid of it. And when he rode east, he did not look back at that omission cost him more than any farewell could have. Yeah, actually, I'll just get rid of that sentence also. Extraneous. Okay. Is that the last page? One more.
At the crest above the valley, Cale drew the mare to a halt. From there the village lay open beneath him, reduced to shape and stain. Roofless cottages hunched around the green. The orchard stood black in the middle of its frost, each tree burned on one side as if winter itself had taken a torch to them. 3 stakes marked the places he had made for the dead, small and straight against the ruin. Smoke still rose from Mara's pyre in a thin gray thread. At this distance it might have been any village after any hard season. Only he knew where the bodies lay, which doorway had held a child, which patch of churned earth had been his own yard. The sight did not break him. It hardened something already cracked. He sat very still, one gloved hand on the reins, the other pressed under his cloak against the ring at his chest. The gold edge bit through cloth and skin. He let the pain fix the oath in him. Not for comfort, not for the gods, and not for the dead, who were beyond hearing. For himself, because a man who let this pass unanswered had no right to keep breathing. Somewhere east, men had ridden under orders, carrying another man's seal or another king's word, and they had done this work as part of a campaign to be counted later in neat lines on parchment. Cale looked down at the smoke and gave those unseen men the only promise he had left to spend. Whoever gave the order, he said into the cold, his voice flat as hammered iron, I will find you. The wind took the words at once. That was well enough. Oaths were not made stronger by witnesses. He turned the mare's head east and rode on, no longer carrying grief alone. It had found its use now. Ahead lay the army, the king, and the long machinery of war that had ground his home to ash. He would enter it again with open eyes, and when he reached the hand that had set this fire, he would answer it in blood.
I think I'm going to have an editor review of this page. Okay. At the crest above the valley, Kel drew the mare to a halt. Reined the mare to a halt. Slightly tighter, more natural phrasing, avoids the mild stiffness of drew the mare to. Okay. From there the village lay open beneath him, reduced to shape and stain. From there the village lay open beneath him, reduced to scorched shapes and dark stains. I like that. The orchard stood back in the middle of its frost. The orchard stood black in the middle of its frost. Each burned one side. Okay. The orchard stood black and the orchard stood black in the frost. Each burned on one side as a fire had passed through in a single hard sweep. Except 3 stakes marked the places he had made for the dead. 3 stakes marked the graves he had made. The sight did not break him. It hardened something already cracked. That's the one I want to change. It set what was cracked into something harder. I don't like that either. Okay, so it's right there. I'll come back to that. The gold edge bit through cloth and skin. The ring's edge bit through cloth into his skin. Except that he let the pain fix the oath in him. He let the pain fix the oath in place. Okay. Yeah, slightly less pretentious. For himself, because a man who let this pass unanswered had no right. For himself, because if he let this pass unanswered, he had no right. Yeah, like keeps the ruthless self-judgment, but makes it feel more immediate and character-specific. Huh? Good job. All right. Somewhere east, written carrying another man's sill, carrying a lord's sill. Yes, and a king's word. Done this as one more act in a campaign that would later be tallied in the line. Yeah, I like that. Did good on this page. The wind took the words at once. That was all. That was well enough. The wind took the words at once. Good. Oaths did not need witnesses. More forceful. Yep. Trims. Yep. Like it. Turned the mare's head east and rode on. He turned the mare east, rode on. Stronger cadence, cleaner syntax, avoids the slightly awkward abstraction, no longer carrying grief alone. Yes, exactly. Don't need to keep talking about his internal feelings and loneliness and all this stuff. Okay, ahead lay the army, the king, and the long machinery. Ahead lay the army, the king, and the war that had ground his home to ash, and the long machinery of war. Risk sounding inflated here. Okay. Simplify keeps the menace without drawing attention to itself. Thank you. He would, and when he reached the, and when he found the hand, we reached the hand that had said, when he found the hand, yeah, that's right. Okay. Pretty good. A whole bunch of changes there. I made it better. Now for this one again, where was that? It doesn't highlight it if it's already been rejected, I see. Okay. But it was here. The sight did not break him. It hardened something already cracked. Use something. Do not use cracked. Whoa. Um, do not like the use of cracked here. None of that really makes sense. Sight did not break him. It hardened. It further hardened his resolve. Alright, that's better. Alright, so that's 25 pages of 400 and some pages. Alright. So, I see a chat over there. Who is that? Hey, streamer, this is my last round. I will ask for a follow. I follow back forever, around 200 rumblers. Went to you for now. Get enough followers for my videos. Thanks. I hope to help and stay extra viewer. Okay. So somebody from Rumble, it looks like, showed up. Interesting. Wonder how you can tell. Oh, it's probably that total number up there. It tells you how many people are viewing. I wonder if that's just me viewing myself. I don't know, Skull Spotter, but I'll check you out here in a little bit. I wonder if this thing, Rumble Studio, I wonder if it shows YouTube chats. This thing, it's hard to tell. Well, here, I'll chat myself in YouTube. Okay. What am I looking for? That? Yeah. Okay, and it does work. Okay, so inside of Rumble Studio, I can see Rumble and YouTube chats. Alright. Alright, I followed you, Skull Spotter. Okay, so. Alright, before leaving, he turns his back for. So that's 25. What's coming up? Oops. 25. So chapter 1 ends at 26. I'll do that. Kel walks alone for the rings. Okay. Cool. So one chapter will be done as soon as I do 26. Okay. Won't take too long to generate one page. Okay, it's done. Let's go to the next page. Read it to me, please.
Toward evening the road narrowed between stone walls half collapsed by frost, and the valley behind him sank out of sight. That, more than the graves or the smoke, made the leaving real. A man could still pretend while he could see what he had abandoned. Once the hills took it, there was only the mare's steady gait, the creak of leather, and the weight of the ring knocking softly against his breastbone with each step. Cale kept his shoulders square in the saddle out of old habit. No one watched him now, no captain measured his seat, no line of riders dressed itself by his example, yet discipline held where comfort had failed. It was the one thing the fire had not touched. He passed a wayside shrine at dusk.
Let's start off with editor review. was one of the things I was going to look at. So let's check it out. That more than graze or smoke made the living real, made it final. Okay. Could see what he had abandoned. A man could still pretend while the thing he had abandoned remained in sight. Yeah, thank you. That did not make sense. Okay, now read me this.
He passed a wayside shrine at dusk, a waist-high pillar of river stone with its little niche split open by weather. The painted saint inside had lost its face years ago. Someone had left a twist of dried heather there, brown and brittle with age. Kale drew rein and looked at it without dismounting. In other years he might have touched 2 fingers to brow and chest, asked for safe roads, for harvest, for a wife's easy laughter at the end of day. The man who had asked such things had ridden home expecting them. He sat a moment longer, gray-eyed and expressionless, ash ground into the seams of his boots and cloak, and found he had nothing to offer the faceless stone except contempt. He rode on. Night gathered hard and cold. The eastern sky held a smear of red long after the sun was gone, as if the world itself had been cut and left to clot. Kale did not name it an omen. He had seen too many men make meaning from weather when they lacked the courage to face what men had done. Armies had done this. Orders had done this. Somewhere ahead, banners still flew over cook fires, officers still argued over maps, and a king might still believe victory was a word fit for speaking. Kale settled deeper into his cloak and rode toward that lie because there was nothing else left for him to be.
The original simile is vivid but risks purple prose. That's exactly what I asked you not to do. Thank you. Make meaning from weather and call weather prophecy. More pointed direction. Yeah. Armies had done this, orders had done this, armies had done this, men obeying orders had done this. Uh, Kel settled deeper into his cloak and rode toward the lie because there was his cloak and rode toward the lie because nothing else remained to him, nothing else left for him to be. Yeah, I didn't like that either. Okay, good. All right. So there you go. Chapter 1 done. How many more chapters left to go? 14 more. All right, I think I'm going to take a break. It's time for me to get something to eat. Thanks to anyone who was watching. Oh, I'm in your stream today. Thank you. Have a nice day. I'm in your stream today. Yeah. Thank you for stopping by. Check out StreamTeam.com. That's where I make all these apps and put them up there for other people. Um, and this one here is probably my favorite apps. Tell Me a Tell AI. The whole point of this app, and it's basically this novel creator and this interactive story generator. So I have two of them. I'm this novel one is the new one. This interactive story generator is right here. Let's jump into the story real quick.
Nessa's eyes glittered with predatory satisfaction as Kale offered the open-ended favor. She reached beneath the bar, withdrawing a narrow slip of vellum sealed in black wax. "You will regret this, Archivist, but I'll remember." Cirrus' jaw tightened, but Kale spoke the oath, feeling the weight of yet another invisible chain settle around him. Nessa turned and signaled to a shadow in the farthest corner of the tavern, a figure detached from the gloom. A wiry man with burn scars across his jaw and a single silver eye, his clothing a patchwork of faded temple vestments and street rags. "Rinalt," Nessa introduced, "dredger, salvage mage, and, lately, catacomb rat. He knows every hidden vault beneath the tide-worn stones." Ren's silver gaze flicked over Kale and Ceres, lingering on Ceres' hidden blade and Kale's ink-stained hands. "If you want to live, listen. The Undercathedral's cursed, and the Guild watches the entrances. I know a way in, but we'll need more than luck. There's unrest among the dead, and some names are best left buried." Nessa's voice cut through the tension. "You have what you came for. But remember, debt's double quick in Arundel. Now go, before someone else decides you're worth more dead than useful."
So you can see with this interactive story generator, it's quite a bit different. It reads it for you, and the higher quality TTS that's slower to generate, and it highlights the text as it goes along, paragraph by paragraph. You can see how it generates the image and background music here. You can see back here the animations of the smoking. And you don't see it right now, but there were choices down here. You can see, your decision was, whatever choice that was made. But normally, as you're going through this interactively, there's choices listed here. Have my character do this or do that, and then there's always a text box at the bottom, so you can type in your own choice. And so it's meant for you just to actually go through line, if you have a fast enough GPU and stuff to generate all this. And it takes about like a minute per page or whatever. Anyway, the thing that I've been working on here today is the novel builder. And we got chapter 1 done. So, thanks for anyone who showed up and saw it, and anyone who watches in the future. And remember to stop by StreamTeem.com and see if there's any apps in there you're interested in, or anything else that's available. There's other content available in there, even a game. But check it out. Thank you for your time today, folks. Now let's find this Rumble Studio, and I'm ending the stream. Oh, OBS. Let's find OBS. Let's end that first, I think.